Traveling around Europe, one of the things that stuck to me the most was how countries that are very close to one another can actually have cultures that are very, very different. And one of the best ways to see that difference is through the party culture in different capitals in Europe. Probably one of the things that's easiest to notice is how music changes in between countries. So, for example, if you're in Berlin, it's techno capital of the world. Everyone is dancing to very techno, electronic music, and that kind of stuff. There's also a strong underground scene in Germany, and honestly, Berlin is just underground in and of itself. So that's definitely the vibe there. If you go south and, for example, Spain, then obviously Latino music and Latino culture is huge. You're going to go to parties where you're going to listen to reggaeton for like 5, 6 hours straight. If you go to Portugal, then it's actually Brazilian music that completely dominates Portugal, even though they also have their own types of music, their own type of culture as well. If you go north to the UK and Ireland, and I have to say that one is my favorite, you can count on going to the streets, going to the bar, and having the coolest type of rock and roll just playing around. And honestly, that's definitely my style. And I loved every single pub that I went to in Ireland, in the UK, because I personally could count on having music that I absolutely loved. And then, of course, other countries in Europe, of France, you're going to have a little bit more French music. Italy, I thought, was a very generic kind of music, I'd say. Like it was mostly just pop music, some rock, and some, I don't know, some, a couple of Italian songs, though not that much. It was pretty generic in my view. And of course, if you go to Eastern Europe, then I feel like it's also a little bit more international music. Another thing that I definitely notice is that the more north you go, the earlier the parties start and also the earlier the parties finish. And that kind of makes sense because I think the south is generally much hotter than the north. And so nobody really wants to do anything during the middle of the day because it's too hot. And so everything just gets delayed an hour or two later to the point where you end up actually leaving your house and going to party at like 9, 10, maybe even 11. Whereas up north, it's just colder in general, and sometimes during the summer it's also going to be cold at night. So what makes more sense for them is to start the party early so they don't have to be out at night at like 2 3 a.m. When it's colder outside. A drastic example of this is when I was in Barcelona. The host I was staying in literally had parties scheduled up every single night, and people would go down to reception at maybe 11, 11:30, start partying there, but they would only actually leave for parties at around 1 a.m. And probably just come back at like 7, 8, or 9 a.m. Whereas when I was in Dublin, uh, me and my friends actually started partying at like 5:30 or 6, going to pubs and stuff, and we were all home by like 11, 11:30. And it's just like such a drastic culture where in one culture you leave at 1 a.m. and then in one culture you come back at 11:30. People say that in general Spain is the best place for you to party, maybe the Balkans as well, and I kind of agree with that in the sense that people are more partyish in general. So you're gonna get more parties more days of the week. But I don't like getting out at like 1 a.m. It's a little bit too late, you know. I want to have like a reasonable sleep schedule. I want to go out a little bit earlier, and also just the English music, the rock and roll is just a little bit more lively to me. And I'll tell you this: across Europe, you're going to find a lot of street artists. And one thing I can tell you, some places they're going to be very good, in some places they're not going to be as good. But the one place where I could count on every single street artist being absolutely talented was the UK, Ireland, and especially London. The people on the street in London, generally like street artists, musicians, and all that, they're some of the most talented people I've ever met.